everybody. Dr. Bill Janishek, and welcome to another episode of Conquering Stress podcast, where we go through everything that has to do with not only your stress, but your health. Health is physical, chemical, and emotional. Stress is, and a lot of the things that cause your problems are also, you flip them around, they're gonna cure your problems as well. So, as this recording is, we're in the middle of May, which is National Fitness Month, and we've also just got out of an exciting event for the LA Tribune, where I was honored to host the leadership in healthcare. We wanted to highlight the different people they're making waves. And with leaders, they have to take the first arrows, but they also get the accolades on it. But they have to have the vision, and they have to have the courage to go over and just kind of see what their vision is to fruition. And it was interesting is that one of the guests on there was Kody Fairfield, who is a co-owner of Tragic Kingdom Fitness Group. And, this is a local podcast. You can tell that I'm not Joe Rogan, but a lot of the people in my community were asking, so what is this and how is this going? Because it was very interesting. I caught that, but he didn't get a lot of time. We had so many people on there and people were really interested. So I thought I would grab them by the ears and drag them in here and talk a little bit more, because there was an overwhelming outbound about, said, well, I wanted to talk to this dude over there. It sounded very interesting. And so, Kody, come on up here. Let me get you over here. Where are you?
Am I here?
There you go. You are right there. Welcome to the wonderful podcast of Conquering Stress. I know that you're so honored to be here. And how could you help?
I am. Yeah, true. After I got over the emotional shock of, wait, this isn't the JRE podcast. I was, I settled down and I really kind of took scope of like the opportunity and things like that. And, the one thing I normally put in my contract is, what was that?
I said, we like to do the bait and switch. And we say, hey, do you
Yes.
be interested in seeing Joe Rogan?
Well, I was lucky that normally in my contract, I put a stipulation on how good looking the hosts have to be. But I think you'll make the metric. I didn't put it in this one, but we'll figure those parts out after the fact. No, all honesty, I'm super appreciative of wanting to continue the conversation. I'm super excited about what we're doing with Tragic Kingdom, specifically through CrossFit Anaheim, and some things that we have that are hoping to change the market in which we work, especially on certain perceptions about what CrossFit is, or what the health and fitness industry is really doing large scale.
So back up a little. Just talk about Tragic Kingdom Fitness Group is a big entity with a portion of that is Anaheim CrossFit in Anaheim, California, and you came up with, and the thing that piqued everybody's interest was, there's lots of gyms around, but your overall vision for not just the CrossFit, but the whole thing. For the people that didn't see the leadership week, can you go back over about the vision that you have for Tragic Kingdom and Anaheim CrossFit 1886?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like kind of taking a step back even further, I've been doing CrossFit since 2011. I've been coaching since 2013. Other than a 1.5 year hiatus due to COVID and taking a sales job and my wife not wanting to divorce because I had to make some money. I've been in the community, like even when I wasn't coaching, I was still embedded in the community and really bought into what the methodology of CrossFit is, which I think gets a bad rap when it's marketed out forwardly because you get focused on the gains and not the method. For me, when I look at CrossFit, and the reason I've been doing it so long is the methodology really talks about how you take somebody as they are, wherever they fall on what we call the health and wellness continuum. And that is a continuum that you move across in your daily life. You guys do this as a doctor. When you bring clients in, you're measuring, blood pressure, you're measuring different metrics of blood panels, and all of those are basically telling you where a client, or giving you an idea of where a client might be from sickness all the way to wellness. And so CrossFit's whole identity is really built upon that concept and making it empirically driven. And that is a different model than most other fitness regimens. When you go to LA Fitness, they're not measuring you to make sure that you're actually improving. They're just taking your money. When you go to F45, it's the same thing. They're taking your money. You may get better and more fit as a consequence of being a part of those programs, but that is not their MO. Now, when I looked at CrossFit and I said, well, what is everybody doing and what do we need to do differently to really kind of make a footprint? I told my wife, if I get into anything, I need to do it so that it becomes something that is what I would want out of the experience if I knew nothing about it. And so when I hear the phrase of moving people from sickness to wellness, to me, that's an all encapsulating comment. Um, Obviously, if you're going to a gym, you're going to get the fitness, you're going to get the health benefits that come along with fitness. And those are going to change some of the markers that, your doctors, your physicians, your clinicians are looking at to assess longevity, decreased mortality rates, all those kinds of fun things. But often what is really, really neglected, and especially in today's age where we're fighting inflation and rising costs and things like that, is the financial side. We also, if you've had any experience, and I know, Bill, you have some experience, though your form wouldn't show it, with CrossFit, in that, like, it's not the cheapest thing on the book. Like, you are going in and you're going to pay between $150 and maybe $350, depending on your market, depending on what gym you go to and the offerings they have for that service. And I take that really seriously. For instance, where we are in the city of Anaheim, if you're taking the whole scope of the bottom income rung to the top income rung, average income in the city is right around $35,000 to $40,000.
Oh, wow.
Our price point right now, as we start and kind of build in this direction, is about $190 a month, which works out to be about 3 to 4% of anybody's given income based on the average number. And so in doing that, I need to bring the most value to that 3 to 4%, because while that number feels small, when you're talking about a budget, it's huge. That's normally, money that would be used to put food on those people's tables. So my whole thought process was, if I can handle as an innate business structure, the health and fitness side, well, my personal role, my personal job, my career job outside of this is in finance. And how do I merge those two things to help people go, if I'm going to make this spend and this commitment to 3 to 4% of my budget, I need to know what the rest of my budget's doing. I need to know what financial goals I need to set for myself so that my family's taken care of, because the stress created from the financial side has deleterious effects across every other health metric. In fact, as you're talking about this Conquering Stress podcast, financial stress induces stress in every other system of the body. It is not avoidable. And so I and my business partner, Josh Pagalunan, wanted to come together and say, how do we fix this? This is a resource I can bring to the table because it's what I do every other day when I'm not at the gym. Well, if I could plug those two things in together, I can help not just the people coming into the gym, but now I can go, hey, you need to budget for a $200 expense a month. Let's look at your budget and really see what fits, what doesn't, what holes in the boat are there, so that this becomes a priority, reduces your stress on the financial side, and is reducing all of your other metrics to push you along closer to fitness every single day that you're here. The other side of that is, now I've created a retention hook, because I am treating this as a whole level holistic approach that shows actual concern, not just for the people when they're in the gym, but their everyday life when they leave it. If we do what we're setting out to do, there will be an empirical way that I can show that my members, when they started, are going to have, across time, a decreased rate of mortality. They're going to have an increased opposite correlative approach to their finances. So they'll be able to say, hey, look, I came in here not super fit, not super healthy. All of my metrics there have improved. And when I looked at the stress that my finances were causing, that stress is reduced. And that's really the ultimate goal, is to kind of par those two things together. Now, when they go to the doctor's not going, well, your cortisol levels and your stress hormones are through the roof, and I can't figure out why, because it doesn't seem to be biologically created. Well, maybe it's that emotional side that they're missing. They don't know how to identify. They don't have resources to solve. And if I can plug those two things in, I want to be able to do that to the best of my capability.
Well, that's pretty interesting on the fact is, because on this podcast we've talked a lot, because it's conquering stress. And the reason that I'm talking about conquering stress is because people understand stress. If I told them health was physical, chemical, and emotional, they'd go like, okay, well, I got to move, I got to eat something, and I've got to not cry in the shower. But finances are probably the biggest stressor in the country as a whole. but nobody talks about it as a fitness metric.
Mhm.
And
I mean, even on that note, though, I would kind of push back a little bit. It was like, I think we talk about it all the time. We just don't identify it that way, right? Like when somebody comes into your office and they're like, hey, I need treatment for this, that, or the other, what's the first thing they ask about?
oh yeah, they'll ask
Right? Like that's the first thing on the top of their mind. In fact, they will trade cost for no access to care because that dollar point to them is more stressful than not being treated for the condition that it will affect them 20 years from now. I equate it to like smoking cigarettes, right? Where like people were willing to smoke cigarettes because the cancer doesn't show up for 20, 30 years. So they can write that off and then not deal with it till they deal with it. Well, the finances are the opposite. They deal with it immediately and they'll deal with whatever the consequence of not spending that money is now and then figure it out later. And unfortunately, retirement life or the financial side only gets tighter when you quit your job and now you're on whatever government system dependency you have, whether that's Social Security or otherwise. And you're on a government system for your healthcare. And so those limitations come into play. Well, if I can help people see the vision of like long-term goal planning, not just on the fitness side, then the financial side is an easy plug-in to go, hey, like this is all goal planning. That's all we're doing. And now I can show you empirically, you moved from stage A to stage B to C to D, and now we're all the way at Z and you're ready to retire financially and you're more fit than you've ever been in your life.
Yeah, and bringing that back. So now bring that back to the fitness portion that you have. Um, what do you guys bring other than the financial thing? Because
Mm-hmm.
we talked about you said LA Fitness, and I don't know if someone's going to sue me for you saying that, but my attorneys will be in touch.
All right, perfect.
But they go to a global gym and they sign up for access to a place to work out.
Mm-hmm.
And some may or may not hire a personal trainer or someone to
Sure.
show them or take a class on that. So one of the things that I've always said about CrossFit, and I'm sure there's other functional fitness places that do the same, but you have a coach there that's hands-on and right in there. What have you seen as the role of coaches
Sure.
in your place?
So I'm going to start with CrossFit as a generality, and then I'll kind of narrow that into my business specifically and what we're doing differently. So one, I would say, actually, I'm going to go bigger than that. Let's talk general gym business into CrossFit, into us, and that'll kind of help paint why we ended up where we ended up. So generally, when you're looking at fitness industry, you're looking at two different models of business. You're either looking at a money model or you're looking at a health and fitness model. Those two things are not compatible in the sense that a money model doesn't worry about the effects that people are receiving in the gym. They're worried about how many people can I cram in this facility at a certain time and not go over capacity or under budget, right? So that's the LA Fitness model. LA Fitness doesn't give two licks of a care of whether John comes in and his resting heart rate and his blood pressure have been reduced because he's coming to LA Fitness. They don't care. They want to go, I want to sell 1 million policies and I only want 30% of those people to show up in a given month, right? Like that's their metric. They don't care beyond that. As long as the bills are paid, that's all they care about. It's why they're personal trainers. There are some handful of them that are really good, but most of the ones that are good leave because that's not the model they got in to do and how they want to affect people's life. The other side of that is the health and fitness model. And that's where CrossFit to me is uniquely identifiable. It's why we've been able to qualify our gym under the HSA and FSA reimbursements, like to be able to use tax-free money, because there's an empirical measurement to functional fitness that is built into CrossFit, and CrossFit defines it as measurable, observable, and repeatable. Because of those things, I can go tell a doctor, yes, your client or your patient is improving across their health metrics because I can prove it, which then allows access points like that. So to me, when I look at my coaching staff and I look at what CrossFit is doing, they have a credentialing system that I think has gotten more flack from people who have never experienced it than people who have actually taken the L1 or the L2 or the L3 or the 4 and actually talked about the benefit to them. The L1 is strictly methodology. It's getting introduced to what CrossFit is, so you can take that to a class and speak the language that they're trying to teach. And I still think that gets messed up from an ownership level where they have the same mental thought process as LA Fitness and how many members can I get? because I want the least amount of them to show up to be a functional business. That's not our metric at all, which means I have to produce value. My coaches have to deliver value. They have to be like front of the line practitioners that then can pass my client to a clinician for diagnostics and whatever else is needed to then get them back to that base level of adherence in the gym where they're working out healthy and we have like longevity to that. So the way that works for me and what's different is CrossFit typically only requires a level 1 to coach a class. Our baseline metric, we will hire level 1s, but they need to be at an L2 within a year, like scheduled for their L2 within a year, because the L2 is really how to be an effective coach, right? That is where it was the best experience that I have ever been to in terms of credentialing. And I've done financial credentialing. I've done the health side of credentialing, not just with CrossFit, but other credentials there. I've done coaching credentialing for sports when I coached in high school, when I coached for a high school, excuse me. And so the level 2 is the most applicable to everything across the board of any experience I've ever had. But they do that because they basically take you and rip you apart and then put you back together to become an effective coach. So our requirement as a gym, I don't have to set the metric. If my coach wants to maintain on staff, they've got to get this planned and scheduled now. Our business has a model in which we support our staff to go through this change because it's a requirement we have. But it will tell me a couple things about my coach. One, they care about what they're doing to actually apply the observable, measurable, and repeatable standard. Two, they're giving me secondary and tertiary levels of understanding of physical movement and health and wellness. Our coaches will not be clock watchers. They're not going to be cheerleaders. They're not going to be the person that you could just plug and play at any gym and get a fun class. If they were that way, I'd send them over to F45. Because that's what F45 coaches do. And that's why they don't really require very many. Like, you can watch their optional videos to understand their methodology, but like beyond that, there's no real requirement on a gym to gym basis. And so for me, CrossFit has a minimum standard, and then CrossFit Anaheim has a minimum standard above that. And our requirement is, one, that they make people feel seen when they show up at the gym and they're able to make a relationship. That relationship evolves into something that they understand movement pattern, they understand biomechanics, and they understand how to be an effective coach to a group setting. And then third level of that is, when we're seeing something that deviates from normal, they can either triage in the field, or if it's not triageable at our scope of practice, that gets pushed onto a clinician who can then use their larger scope of practice and education and foundational understanding to say, I understand you do CrossFit. I understand that it's not inherently dangerous, and I need to correct this, but not remove the thought process of moving across that continuum. Because if I send you away from CrossFit, the odds you go find something worse for you with less coaching or less eyes on, less hand holding to bring you across that continuum, I've done you a disservice because I've taken you away from people who are educated enough to actually apply this at a triageable level in the field. So short story long, our coaches are going to be more educated. They're going to be better run classes, and they're going to be required to hold a minimum standard that is larger than, I would say, probably 80 to 90% of other CrossFit gyms.
You know, there's a couple interesting things that you said there. And the first one was when you said that you wanted to be seen. You want the members to be seen. Mm-hmm. And this is something that a lot of people don't talk about it, but it is so important, because people walk around their whole day and they play a role. They might be a mother or a father or a salesperson, or, you know, some dude on the street. But when you're seen in an area, especially in an area where there's a community, you're part of that community. And I'd always said, so I've been doing CrossFit for way long. I should be better than I am, but I'm not. But I'm there. And one of the biggest thing that I've seen with CrossFit in general was that, you know, health and fitness across the continuum. There's certain things that they teach, but it's the community. And I had talked about this forever, is that if you go to the gym, you say, I'm going to the gym, and you go by yourself, most people will peter out within 2-3 weeks. If you get a workout partner, you may show up still, and you're still probably at an 80% failure rate over maybe 6 months.
Mhm.
You get a personal trainer that you pay with a workout partner, 95% of the time you'll be there. And with CrossFit, if you show up to a place and you have 15 workout partners that see you, want you there, you have a shared goal. It's like army buddies. If once you've been in
Yep.
the foxhole with somebody, there's an emotional component that needs to be there. When they go in, they say, "Hey, Bill, what's going on?" And I say, "Well, I'm going to kick your ass today. We're going to get the." And you go on, and everybody warms up together. It's sunshine, rainbows, and unicorns until there's a 3, 2, 1, go, and then it sucks. And you suffer with these people during your workout, and you stop, and you guys all succeed as a group, and then you be seen as somebody that gets through that. And watching, and with the coach watching and saying, "Hey, watch the right knee, you're inverting a little," or "No, you need to pull more from the legs and get the hips and the shoulders moving at the same rate of speed. Don't round your back on the deadlift. Get up a little bit more pop here. I know you can do it. Scale down, scale up." And where you have somebody, if when you see that person, not the workout or not, what they're doing, but I know that that person is quad dominant. And
Mhm.
so they need to be watching for this. And I know that they peter out after 3/4 of a mile, and then they start stomping like Frankenstein in ski boots when they're run. So I got to watch that versus somebody that has great form, but they have major ADD, and you got to
Mhm.
keep them focused. So knowing the people, and one of the pushbacks that I always give, people say CrossFit's expensive. And I said, no. They go, well, I can go to LA Fitness, since we'll be named in the lawsuit together. It's $20, $30 a month. And you're not paying for the access to the gym, you're paying for a result. So if you're paying $200 a month, but you're stronger, you're fitter, your clothes fit better, you have more confidence. My thing, I'm a brain guy. I want to see the brain and the mind working better, and nothing moves the needle more away from depression and to ecstasy better than high intensity functional movement, because you're moving all the limbs and you're doing everything. It's the result you're getting for only $200 a month or
Right.
$350 or whatever it is. It's doing that, and the community supports you in that. I've watched
Yeah.
people for a decade get better and better and better.
Oh yeah.
Some people get
Yeah.
younger.
Yeah.
It's
No, I
incredible.
mean, and ultimately that's the truth, right? Is that like it keeps you young. I can't remember who said it, but I love the saying that says you die the day you stop playing, right? And the community is a large part of that. In fact, like a lot of the concepts that I look into are related to, again, empirical data that shows that um, humans innately are drawn to community, right? And what they look for in a community is uh, a level. This is based on a study out of the journal is called the International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health. And basically, what they found was that there's an interrelationship between meaningful participation, sense of belonging, connectedness, and well-being in a healthy population. If you look at why society has had a breakdown of health, that exact definition is a huge correlation. Like back 20 years ago, when people were buying homes, the first thing they looked at was the community. What am I going to be plugged into? Right? What am I going to be a part of if I move to this home? The reason CrossFit has got this like connotation of like everybody who does CrossFit, all they talk about is CrossFit, is because they finally found a community they feel connected to, they feel like they belong to, they feel valued in, right? And for whatever reason, that's taken as like a knock on people. And we've gotten this weird like radicalization of individuality. And you see it all across not just health and wellness, you see it in politics, you see it like it's infecting people. And it's a weird concept because I consider myself kind of like a soft libertarian in the sense that like I think that there's a really, really important role to individuality within a societal structure. Because I think that generally you have to treat people as an individual. But when you're talking about a larger collective, that collective have to be of like-minded individuals that create that community, because otherwise there is no connectedness among anybody. If we all just are free-floating molecules in space, there is no attachment to anything, which means that social fabric breaks down because there's no morality clause, there's no agreement on what is important to anything, and then you just lead to everybody feeling apathetic and by themselves. Back to what you stated, like that is what makes CrossFit different. That ability to walk into a door, have a coach know who you are, what your kids are doing, what they're involved in, what your career goals are, where you're headed, what things bother you, what might be making you sad. Like, to have somebody care about you and make you feel seen is where this all starts. I get to do all the other health aspects because I know baseline, that's what my coaches are expecting to create. I can have any coach watch a clock and create community though. I want that to be the next level where like all of the other metrics of how to be an effective coach. Like, again, if I'm asking somebody to give me 3 to 4% of their income a year, my return on that investment needs to be tenfold.
Well, you know, the interesting thing about just the income is, just as a side note going, when people are fitter, they make more money.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell this to people all the time. The magic of chiropractic and staying on a wellness path is the year after you continue asymptomatically, because what you find is you don't get sick at all, or at least not as often. You're not spending money on NSAIDs and aspirins and doctor's visits. You get happier because you subconsciously have more energy. So you're like, you know what? I am going to go over and talk to the neighbor really quick. And you're more engaging because you have that energy. You know, the Eeyore has been, pulled out of you.
Right.
And you start to do more because you have more energy. You show up to your place of work and you're a happier mood. Then you're attracted to, if you're in sales, people are going to buy more from you. If you're in a corporate job, you're going to get recognized for showing up early, staying late,
yep.
whistling down the hallways and making people happier. You become more valuable. Therefore, you become more profitable. And I can easily see that expanding past a 3 or 4%.
Yeah. I mean, what's that law that you're an amalgamation of the 5 people you hang around the most?
Yeah. Yeah. It's an old Jim Rohn quote. And you go back over to what you had said before about the individuality under the guise of a community. But that's exactly when you were talking earlier about being seen. So Maslow talks about, we have to have in our basement,
mm-hmm.
and we've got to have food and shelter and everything else. The next thing is we have to have that community, but we also have to have that the individuality. So in a community, we all have a common vision. We want happiness, love, security, but in a community, we have a baker, we have a blacksmith, we have a farmer, we have a school teacher, we have a fix-it guy, so everybody's individual, but they're all fighting for the same community. The same thing with fitness. When you have a community, you may be better at gymnastics, you may be a beast on this, and all the workouts kind of will highlight you at the same time you're getting better. And the coach is much as a scientific biomechanist as he is as a cheerleader.
But the cheerleading side is more like psychosocial than it is like, oh, you can do it, right? Like it's what thoughts are going through your head. What is actually stopping you from like being able to go, I am capable of this, right? Because that's what the another part in CrossFit is that confidence level you get, or fitness generally. Either remove CrossFit from it. Like the big health metric from being fit and doing things that are hard is, I didn't think I was capable of that. Look at that, I did it, right? And then to your point, the reason people tend to become more wealthy or do better with their finances because of that is like, well, if I can do that over there, I should be able to apply this rule here now, right? And then you're kind of challenging yourself across that spectrum. And funny enough, that in a nutshell is really how I treat my coaching staff. It's like, if you can do this well, then why can't you do this well? And if you could do that well, then you can do this well. And that's why I tell my coaches, like, 18 months from now, I want to have to pay you 6 figures. I want you guys to do so well I've created professional coaches, and I don't want them to leave to the point where I'm like, I'm going to fork over 6 figures to whoever is competing at that level within our business to change lives on that ground level with our membership base.
No, and that's the biggest thing, and that kind of wants to go into the next segue that I have, is that, like I said, the coaches are a low barrier entry.
Yep.
I kind of equate them to massage therapists. You can walk in anywhere, and I said, my neck is tight, or it's spa day or whatever. You can walk in and you can have somebody lay their hands on you who's well versed in this stuff and say, oh, here, that felt good. Or, you know what, I felt this out in your neck and that's not normal. And there's no, you don't have to fill out paperwork. You don't have to go and see if your insurance covers it. You don't have to drive over there. You don't have to sit over there.
Right.
You don't have to wonder. And coaching is really the same thing. You can walk into a gym and say, I want to get fit. And you have another professional that is looking at it and said, hey, you know what? You can't overhead squat because your thoracics are so locked up. You need to go to Yorba Linda Family Chiropractic on Yorba Linda Boulevard, 18631.
I was waiting for a graphic to pop up.
Yeah, the disclaimer
with like a wacky waving inflatable arm guy like dancing in the background.
But it happens. But you could go. But it may also be a podiatrist, or it might be somebody said, "Hey, you know what? I saw you crap yourself on that run. That's a colon issue, and that ain't normal." We only do that during the games. But the point is that once you have that level of a person, they deserve to be treated like a professional once they're there, because the technology is so much greater than it was. I mean, 5 years ago, but 10 years ago, this is a different game. The knowledge base that they've had, if we are doubling our knowledge base every 6 months, and it's probably faster now with AI and everything else, it is never
well, good thing you're still operating in like a 256 megabyte up there in that noggin of yours, because it's easy to double that every 6 months.
And that's the way we work, because I always like to be striving for the next level. But as you're going through that, you can always go and get an answer from Dr. Google or Dr. Chat. And at the very same time, we have more resources at our fingertips, is the exact same time that we have least direction and leadership.
Yeah.
Because what you do with all that, it's like having all the tools in the world, and I don't know how to build a box.
Analysis paralysis. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's overwhelmed. And I see this a lot because I'll get patients well-meaning, but they tell me something and they say, well, my L18 is out and is rotated to the right and it's a compressed sciatica nerve in my neck. And I'm like, okay, what do you mean? Because nothing you really said made really biological sense. But they're trying and they're doing, but there's no direction. So with the coaches being professional coaches and treated like any other professional, it's one of the saddest.
It sets the bar, right? Like, well, I mean, even if you're not looking at it from like that initial triage position, like I am going to as an owner here, like if you're looking at it like as a base level, how do I run a business? What is the worst thing that you can have in your business internally that affects your bottom line? Well, it's turnover. If I'm having constant turnover because my staff keeps leaving, well, then I have to reinvent the wheel with new staff every so often. Take that a step further with CrossFit. If my membership is bought into a coach and that coach leaves, they have to go now reinvest in another human. And that's really, really hard for people to do, especially people who may have lost trauma. Maybe they have a friend that really kind of like did them wrong because they just ghosted them. And now we're re-aggravating pain points that didn't need to be re-aggravated because the business isn't doing what it should be doing to retain quality staff. That's a giant problem in CrossFit. And so that is, again, the reason we set a bar higher is because if I'm going to have professional coaches, I can't have John Smith, who's just here for 6 months until he gets his career job. My whole goal is to put pressure on my staff to say, you need to pick a career or this needs to be your career. Like that's the direction I want them to go. But when I say career, I mean, you're going to be able to support your friends, your family, and what you want to do with your lifestyle on here. You may not be a mega millionaire, but so is 99% of the population doing their every other day job, right? Like they're not turning into mega millionaires being an accountant for some large corporation. And so, like, it's no different than any other professional business. We just need to make it enticing enough that people want to buy in at that level because they're not used to having to. The same reason that like you'll get you'll get members leaving other gyms and they want the same rate they paid at, you know, sloppy gym X, and they come to your gym and especially to us and they're like, well, can I get the same price I was paying there? And my answer is no, unless you want the same product. If you want the same product, well then, you know, just continue paying what you were paying. Yeah. If you want something to actually be worth paying for, then we have to pay for it, because otherwise what you're asking me to do is tell my staff they're not worth it. And I'm not going to do that. The same way that I will defend the dollar value that everybody's paying my business, I'm not going to go tell my staff, as much as they work under the education level we expect, that we are devaluing them to obtain clients. Because my model is not client-based, it's health and wellness-based.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And so with all that saying, you got higher level coaches, higher everything. What have you seen changes in technology or research in the fitness space that have given you the audacity, you son of a bitch, to go out and have a vision so big that you actually think that you can change the trajectory of people's, you know, miserable lives?
Well, in my life, I have headbutted a lot of walls, and the benefit to having headbutted a lot of walls is you get a very thick skull, biologically speaking.
Yes.
And so because of that, I don't fear putting my head down and causing disruption in the industry. In fact, I actually look for it, because along with the growth of technology and all these things, there's more competition at a smaller level than there's ever been, because anybody can really, if they got the right tools and the right motivation, they can start up whatever they want. And I think you saw that with CrossFit early on, that it was like growing faster than Starbucks at a time. And now you're seeing them die off. And for me, initially, it was, well, I need to make sure that I'm not one of the ones that are going to fall to the same system that has been built that's causing all these gyms to do really, really well and then fall off the map. So that was my first idea. The second approach here with this was, I have the specific network that unfortunately includes you. And some other high-level practitioners who I have leaned on for mentorship across various different fields to be able to just be an asset wherever I can fall. And that's not just me taking information, but that's saying, hey, how can I help you guys grow in what you're doing? I want to be a part of this. Like, I am motivated to do something different, leave an impact on people that is different. And then when you're looking at like the gym aspect, I get my audacity because the challenge is in the methodology. Like, it is telling, again, the whole premise of CrossFit is to move people from sickness to wellness. Wherever they're starting, as close as that is to sickness, push them as far into wellness as we can. And I think that simply comes down to like the audacity to do it is taking the challenge of what I signed up to be a part of. I take very seriously the methodology as it was created. I think CrossFit, for all its foibles, there is no better explained methodology for health and wellness if it's applied appropriately. It just hasn't been applied appropriately. So my goal is to sit there and say, I want to take it literally verbatim, and I need to push across all these fields. Now, I think it's very difficult if you don't work in finance to connect to that part. I think it's very difficult if you're not somebody who has the resources to learn to be psychosocially like empathetic to people, or if you're just not somebody prone to that skill set naturally. I think those are all difficult and hard, but that's all part of the hiring process for us to really kind of find that connectivity there. And then more than anything else, like the audacity to do it is that it's not being done, right? Like we've already identified there's a yearning for community for people. We've already identified that people like to generally work out with like-minded people. Well, what is the number one thing people want for their problems? If you had to just like a general blanket statement that, why don't people long-term plan? Why aren't they willing to buy into something long-term? Because they want that one pill that fixes every problem, right?
Yep.
Well, you know what that one pill actually is? It's fitness. It's exercise. Exercise literally has a decreased mortality rate across almost every single metric, including, say you have a client who's obese, right? But they're working out at a level that's sustainable for them. They never lose weight. They never have any kind of physical change. That person's mortality rate is still decreased 10 to 15% in comparison to the same person who sits on the couch, has the same weight load, and doing everything but exercise that the other person's doing. Just by exercising, even if there's no physical change, they get the benefit of that one single shot pill. The hard part with this pill is it comes with responsibility and effort. And so my goal is to lower the barriers to participating in that effort and responsibility.
And you know, the other thing that happens a lot when you have the community and people feel seen, and you have your whole staff, not just the coaches, but everybody in the admin staff as well. I do this at my office, is people, when they walk into the unknown, you get to metaphorically hold their hand, and they get to borrow your confidence. We're going to say, this is what a 200-meter run looks like. Come with me, and put one foot in front of the other, and then come back over and say, okay, we're going to do an overhead squat. So lift the bar over here. Don't put any weights on. Just come back, do the movement. You're building with the confidence, and they walk out and they got 1% better. They're going, wow. And then they feel like a part of the community. And once they're moving, everything changes. So even, you know, I'm delved deep in, I know a lot of people in personal development and psychology portion of different niches. But the mantra is action changes everything. And if you don't know how to put the effort or the movement into action, then nothing happens. It is the cure. Action is the cure all. Get off.
And I mean, that's the mantra for anything, right? It's like, what's the hardest first step? Or what's the hardest step? It's the first one.
Yeah.
Once you take the first one, it's like, then you're just dealing with laws of inertia.
Yeah. And what direction you're changing, because you're going through, and, you know, they also say, you know, the heaviest weight there is in the gym is the front door. And you push that by, that's.
I would probably change that. It's the credit card or the bank account. That seems to be, I can get people in the front door as long as it says free. And then the moment it's like, all right, time to sign up for membership, they're like, but this credit card is so heavy. Like, this is the heaviest credit card I have ever lifted. And I'm like, I saw you drive up and you have $400 worth of Starbucks in the front seat right now. So I think we just need to change where your value system is, but that's my job, right? As to your point, people come to you as an expert in a field because they're shooting into the Wild West. They don't know this field, otherwise they wouldn't need an expert. And so it is my job to handhold. And I think one big thing that we do very well is we set a goal when you sign up. And beyond that goal, we sit there and say, don't take my word for it. Watch how we apply this and what it does for your life, and then make a decision on value. But we need that initial buy-in to say, hey, let's take the jump together, and I'm going to be here along the way to work through it. And I expect you to hold me accountable to what I'm telling you.
Well, I think it's awesome. Everything that you've done, I'm glad that we brought you back over here. And the one last question that with everybody that you've walked through and worked with as a CrossFit participant, as a CrossFit coach, and now as a CrossFit owner and a fitness coach, and now a finance guy, what do you think people want? What's the biggest thing, if there's like one thing that people are yearning for?
I would actually say it's community. I think if you look at everything across the board, community can solve every ill that you have that is creating an action, right? It's easier to work out when you have a group to work out with. It's easier to attend church when you like the people you're attending church with. It's easier to hold yourself accountable, like men's groups, or it's the whole reason you have an AA group for people struggling with alcohol addiction. That community creates action. But the other thing I would say is people need accountability to their thoughts, their feelings, and their goals. Because without accountability, it's really easy to fall off the wagon. I'm gonna tell this story as a personal anecdote. Recently, my biggest struggle with really developing who I have become was because I would have these large, robust ideas, but I was so terrified of action. I sat knowing what I was capable of and never actioning it. Then I got married, and my wife had no reason to marry me, but for whatever reason, she chased me down. And there was something about that accountability to her as just a responsibility as a husband that shifted in my mind, that now every goal I set, I say out loud. Every time I want ultimate accountability, I go to my wife and I tell her things. And half the time she's like, "You're nuts." But then I'm able to apply it because of the accountability I have and the responsibility I have to her. That community aspect takes the individual, plugs them into something where they belong, but then creates the guardrails by which they are to achieve it. So what that does is it goes from radical individualism, where everything is subjective, to I see the value in other people, to those other people's values matter to me so much beyond myself that I want to plug in, be a productive part of this community. When you're a productive part of that community, all of the same resources you're pouring outside of you now get poured back in, right? That's the whole idea of networking. And if we can create a community of like-minded individuals who are dedicated to their fitness, dedicated to be emotionally stable, dedicated to be financially fit, I genuinely think that now I can take that outside of my gym and go, look at this microcosm. Let's turn the entire city of Anaheim into this. I'm going to take this to the city. I'm going to say, hey, look at this data. Look at this empirical data. How do we bring this to everybody who lives here? Right? Like, even at a small scale level, how do I do that? I will tell you, and this is again the accountability part, my ultimate goal is to be 10, 15 years from now, want the city of Anaheim to be able to hold a press conference that says, because of CrossFit Anaheim, city mortality rates have dropped. Our first responders are more fit, more secure, and more emotionally stable than ever before. And the cost to live here has increased because people want to be in the city of Anaheim because of all the previous metrics. And I want to be able to empirically prove every point of that data. But that starts with my initial community, changing their minds, getting their buy-in, and growing that community, because now they are motivated to take what they know, what they've learned, how it's impacted their life outward.
That's excellent. So we came to Kody from the LA Leadership Week, and he was brought that in, and everybody on that has a similar goal and vision. That's why they're on there. But I wanted to come back over there and highlight exactly what Kody was doing, because you just heard him. It's the people that are just so outrageously crazy enough to think that they can change the world usually do. But how many people else, or how many other people are sitting with a dream or a vision or something, and it's just sitting there? You know, they say that the most expensive real estate in the world is the graveyard, because so many dreams have died there. This is one dude. He's not very nice, and he's not very good looking or anything. But
face for radio. What are you going to do?
But for anybody listening in the local, for all the people that said, well, what was that? I wanted to give a clear indication, but not only what they're doing, but who they are, because who Kody is and his partners are, and the vision is going to transcend everything. He's sitting in the middle of Anaheim, California, which happens to be exactly where Disneyland is. So when Walt Disney had a vision, people are walking around in that today. And so much so that it's deemed the happiest place on earth. But it's become commonplace to so many people because of his vision. You can look at Kody's obviously passion, well thought out plans for this stuff, but just passionate vision and adding it on for something bigger than themselves. I do the same thing in my practice. Is I want to go over and I want to create bigger things, because I know what's possible. And when you get together a bunch of people like Kody and myself and a whole bunch of other people that have that same vision, that we can see greatness in people. And if we can just tweak this and tweak that and come together as a community, because that's exactly how the body works. You know, the person's like a cell. A group of cell creates a tissue. A group of tissue creates an organ. A group of organ systems creates a body. And it just kind of goes off on there. So we've got a couple of these good, healthy cells with great visions and good energy, and we're going to take this over to the next level. And I want you to stay tuned and tune in, follow up on Kody, and check it out. and if you're local, go drop by and see
Yep.
if he's telling the truth or he's full of shit, because I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised. So I want to bring everybody of that. I'm going to conclude that. I'm going to respect Kody's time for now. I'll disrupt him later on during our mutual lawsuit, I suppose. But I want you I want you to guys just check him out. Stay tuned here. Stay tuned with him, and we're going to bring you everything that we can to continue the path of not only health, happiness, and wellness, so we can truly conquer stress and overcome the world.
And if they do want to find us, Bill, CrossFitAnaheim.com. And I will say, anybody who's looking to find a gym who takes their HSA or FSA accounts, come hit us up. We can help you out.
There you go. Haven't heard that? Your healthcare is going to pay for it, huh?
There you go.
Peace.